Why is identity resilience a top priority for security executives? Because your identity access management or IAM system is critical to your business. Whether you use Okta, Microsoft Entra, or another IDP, if your IAM is attacked, your operations can go down for hours or days, directly impacting your bottom line. So what's your backup plan? Mighty ID is here to save the day, reinforcing your IAM resilience. With flexible backup and recovery, and even migration between IDPs, Mighty ID keeps business running when failure is not an option. Check out Mighty ID at securityweekly.com/Mighty ID for more.
Created in 2005 and hosted by security industry veterans, Pulse Security Weekly is your source for in-depth coverage of the latest vulnerabilities, exploits, and security research. Our weekly security news discussion dives deep into the security issues we face today and potential solutions in a fun and lively atmosphere. Each week, we bring on guests from the security community to learn about their journey and discuss topics relevant to their work and research. You can also subscribe to our show by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Pulse Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher. We've recorded a ton of content over the years, so we created Spotify playlists featuring some of our favorite episodes, including interviews with Marcus Random, John McAfee, and Chris Roberts, to name a few. You can find them at securityweekly.com/starter packs.
Panoptica, Cisco's cloud application security solution, provides end-to-end lifecycle protection for cloud-native application environments. It empowers organizations to safeguard their APIs, serverless functions, containers, and Kubernetes environments. Panoptica ensures comprehensive cloud security, compliance, and monitoring at scale, offering deep visibility, contextual risk assessments, and actionable remediation insights for all your cloud assets. Get more information at securityweekly.com/Panoptica. Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Ben Carr. Follow Security Weekly Productions on LinkedIn for exclusive show clips, insights, and updates across our organization. Stay connected with our hosts and fellow community members and join the conversation that's shaping the future of cybersecurity. This segment is sponsored by Okta. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/Okta. Bhawna Singh is the Chief Technology Officer of Engineering for the Okta Customer Identity Cloud. She has over 20 years of experience successfully building and leading talented teams of engineers to transform and scale technology for a global user base. Bhawna has led multiple tech transformations, scaled systems from 0 to 100 million monthly users, led the global expansion of products, participated in multiple acquisitions, and spearheaded innovation to drive user growth and engagement, delivering multi-million-dollar revenue growth. Bhawna, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
It's a pleasure, Matt. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk about some AI research that has been conducted by Okta, I think in conjunction with a research firm. And so typically when we cover research, what was the impetus? Like, why the research? Give us a little background on why you guys decided to do this research around AI.
Well, as we know, the trend around AI and its usage, and given in the space we are, which is identity, which sits right in the center, in our point of view, of where AI is going. From the aspect of course, the impact of AI on us or the value that we want to create with AI, but also what identity creates for AI, which is any aspect of personalization depends on identity focus. Any aspect of, to understand what the user wants and the context around it, again, depends on the identity focus. So it's a two-way understanding of what AI plays into for identity and what identity plays for AI. And that was the core of understanding, given that play, what are executives in the space feeling, thinking, or how are they making these decisions? So that was the focus of. We have the trend, we see the market, we see a lot of, you can say, material externally of what the voice or the view is, but we wanted to reach out our customers, our connections, our leadership, our um, executives to understand externally, and customers to understand what is the view from them directly. And that was the, I would say, the core goal, to understand AI impact for in the space.
So actually we did a webcast on this a couple of weeks ago, and I see kind of two interesting kind of sides of the AI coin, right? There's the one, how do you use AI? And
Mhm.
then the other one's almost on we were calling it AI for cyber and then cyber for AI, right? Is
Yeah.
it more of a how do we use AI to solve certain problems, or is it how do we protect the security and privacy of these AI models, right? Because there's kind of both kind of trends out there right now.
Yeah.
Does your research focus on one or the other, or did it try to address both?
So both, right? Because like you said, it's two sides of the coin, and if we are trying to understand the coin, we have to understand both sides. So, what is the value, or what can AI do for cybersecurity space as such? But also, what role cybersecurity should be playing as the organizations and the tech space is trying to adopt AI. And it's more in the focus of the survey is to understand both sides, but also from the sides of executives and leaders as to how are they making these decisions, or how are they thinking about making these decisions. I think that's what we are trying to understand here through the survey.
Yes. Um, it was, I think, C-level, kind
Hmm.
of, this is at the executive
Correct.
C-suite side.
Hmm.
What, about 125 respondents, something like
That's
that?
right. Hmm.
Okay. So let's get into some of the results. Like, what was like was there one, multiple? What are kind of the key takeaways from the research?
I think of course, there are multiple key takeaways. If I have to call out few takeaways, I would say there was, as obvious you would say, a positive view towards AI from most of the C level executives across the board. But at the same time, I would say the other side, or the surprising side, was, to me personally, was that there was a little bit of uh, um, and not so much of like as much as there was a conversation or material externally which was like, oh my god, cybersecurity will be an issue with AI, with new generation of technology. The outcome from the survey primarily was that uh, while identity is key to deploying a secure and efficient AI strategy, the sense from the C level executive was that it's not, the threat is not as big as otherwise we all think about. So that was a nuanced outcome, I would say, where the sense from the survey was that they felt that the security aspect is not as acute when it comes to AI adoption. Or you can say the privacy aspect was not as acute, which in other way I would say, or I would think about, that this will be top of mind for them.
Yeah,
You do you think that that's correct? Do you agree with that? Like, that's an interesting outcome of that research. I would have thought it would have been the other way.
Exactly. So so much of I think the thinking here is that while they said that they're extremely concerned about the AI's potential impact on security at their organization, I think the concern was not as wide, you can say, or it's projected by a smaller percentage of executive. And is it right or wrong? I think it's more about, again, these are executives at their level, so they should be deciding that. But if you ask my view, security should be a concern, and any aspect of privacy should be a concern, regardless of any technology. If you're adopting a new technology, understanding the impact of that technology on your security posture, on your privacy posture, should be top of mind. And um, so, yes, like I said, if you ask me what was the most surprising part, that was a bit surprising part
Can
for
I
me.
drill into that a bit? Like, so I'm interested in the analysis of the results, and you said you looked at C-level executives, and I'm assuming that's cross-functional. Did that break down? Did say CFOs, chief legal, CEOs, did they not have a concern, and CISOs were like, yeah, this is a major problem? Like, did it break along the lines you would expect, or was it cross-functionally you found those results to be the same?
So we didn't go into the breaking down the title. So
Okay.
across the board, it's lower percentage. But if you really dig into why, or why is it happening, I think they see security as a paramount, or a privacy as a paramount, no matter whether it's AI or not, an issue or a top concern. So if to bring that into a completion or a full circle, AI didn't add or subtract the concern,
Mhm.
is how I would say. Security is top of mind, privacy top of mind. If you add AI as a flavor, it didn't change their concern, is how I would read the survey.
It's interesting because, some of the trends I've seen anyways, is kind of a slowing down of AI projects because of the security and privacy
Hmm.
concerns, right? AI governance, I mean, it was at Gartner, Security and Risk a couple of weeks ago. Like, this theme of AI governance is now taking kind of more of a front and center, is how are you going to secure and protect the data that you put into these LLM models on a generative AI perspective, right? Because that's where most people's heads are right now, is more on the Gen AI. How do I leverage a large learning model? But I'm sending it data. How do I secure it, protect it, et cetera? And so we've seen this kind of headwinds for these AI projects, but the research almost doesn't contradict it, but a little bit, like, they're not as concerned about it. So if they're not as concerned, why do we think we're seeing a slowdown?
Well, that's a great question, Matt. And like I said, there's from this survey, there's high enthusiasm towards AI and the adoption of AI, and even understanding of the AI for that matter. And like I said, I think the play of the question here is that security is top of mind regardless of AI to them, or privacy is top of mind regardless of AI as an element. And that's my take as to, if you bring AI or do not bring AI, for me, security is top of mind. It's a brand building trust metric for me. So I think that if you add that factor, and you try to read the survey, I get it that it didn't change their fear or concern around security. But you're right on the aspect of, I think when the technology started, I would say maybe around a year back, there was a lot more concern about privacy and the understanding of it. And I think today there's a lot more understanding and enthusiasm towards the technology and the value add or the impact that it brings. That the fear of privacy, you can say, or the aspects of what was a headwind is not as much of a
Mm.
headwind, in my point of view. There's better understanding, and even the services or the technology who are offering this AI capabilities or AI services, they have also ramped up on their posture. Earlier in a year back or 6 months back, their posture and security was not there because they were just rolling out their capability. But now most of them are SOC 2 compliant, and they're building all those certifications. I think there's a shift here, and that's what this survey is telling us, that there's a shift here where it was a new technology, data was playing a key role. There was lack of understanding of what data is flowing into, and hence the high concern. But now it's coming down, not coming down as in security is not a priority, but coming down to the regular level or the usual level of security is still a priority. But AI is not adding the big factor to it, primarily because, again, this is my point of view, that the services themselves have ramped up their posture, and there's a lot more understanding on the executive side as to what is the impact and value this technology will create. At the same time, I think companies are bringing in their structure, which is identity platform, security posture across the data as well, which was a missing piece, you can say, in past, which is data was seen as a back end processing thing behind the scenes. So hence the same security principles were not applied, but now it is getting applied. It is, front and center. So I think that changes the game. It's kind of like not knowing and hence the fear versus knowing and hence the understood and informed aspect of where they are now.
Yeah, interesting. Um, I want to get into some of the potential. I don't know how much your research covered some of this, but like the use cases for AI.
Mhm.
What are the businesses planning to did you get into what they're planning to use it for, how they're planning to use AI? Like, are there certain, like, specific use cases or trends we're seeing on what types of usage we're going to see from some of these businesses?
I think the heavy aspect here is primarily the internal productivity or productivity as such, which is the key focus across the board, or you can say the enthusiasm where it comes from primarily is around that very aspect of bringing in the productivity improvement. Um, they are certainly looking at how they can leverage AI to quickly solve for operational and innovation benefits. So that was the piece that the survey touches, which is how are the companies look and these executives are looking at for ways to implement AI quickly for the operational and innovation benefits. And hence, and that is driving their enthusiasm towards the positive outlook, you can say, or positive thinking around adoption of it. Primarily, businesses feel that this is the technology that can help them get ahead of their competition by implementing it. So that's, again, we didn't break it down into every little detail of what kind of projects, but that's the narrative, you can say, that's coming out of the survey.
Got it. And then this was different industries, different
Yes.
regions. Any like surprising differences? Like, are certain industries or regions less likely to adopt, or they have different concerns, or were they pretty much kind of standard across the board?
Surprisingly, it's not obvious to us through the data that there is a certain category of industry which is thinking differently. But I would say that the other point that was, I would say, a little bit, that nuanced, and I had to read through it in the survey, was while there's a high enthusiasm and understanding of the technology, very few C-suite leaders considered themselves an AI experts. And if you look at it as a statement, it's how can you be enthusiastic and excited about adopting a technology and say that, oh, but I'm not an expert. And as I was working with my survey team, and reading through, my take there is that as an executive, if you ask me, am I an expert? I might also say that I'm not, because in our head as technologists, if I'm not day to day implementing something, I would just not consider myself an expert, right? It's just not a category or a checkbox I would check, because that's how we are wired. Which is, if we are in the weeds of things, we call ourselves experts or intermediate, however you say it. But if you're not in the weeds and we are high level decision making, we just assume that we are not the expert. So that was another nuance, you can say. If you just look at the survey, you would question why is that. But if you dig deeper and try to understand the mindset of an executive when they are answering that survey, that's what comes out to, which is, if I'm not in the weeds, I'm not an expert, that's obvious. But at the same time, they feel comfortable and informed on making the decisions around it. So you can call it like that's bit of a friction between the two things, but that's the
I
underlying
I
thing.
think overall that's a little bit of the part of the problem with technology, right? Is people get enthusiastic or the opposite, right? They get unenthusiastic about something, or they feel like they're worn out on it, but they don't really understand it, and so they're making
Mm.
decisions based upon a limited information set. They're really, I don't know. I found this especially with cyber, not leaving the judgment to the experts, but kind of taking it on themselves, leading to potential problems. And I think AI is one of those areas that could really be problematic.
Well, there's another side to it, Ben, which is, yes, there's one point of it. The other side of it is, if these executives are accepting that I'm not an expert, then I would expect that when they are making those decisions, they would, of course, bring the experts in the room to actually make that decision. I would be more concerned if the executive said, I'm an expert, let's not bring anybody, I'm going to make all those decisions. I'll be more concerned in that situation versus, what the survey is telling.
Yeah, I've actually seen that in action, Bob. Now, though, which is why I'm
Yeah,
over
that's
here
I've
like
seen the same thing. Yeah,
grinning
that's what
ear
I'm
to
saying. I've
ear.
actually seen that more times than not.
Right? Is you've
Which
got
would
an
be very concerning to me, especially the new adoption, the new technology versus the current outcome.
exactly right. See, because if you have an enthusiastic executive that doesn't consider themselves an expert, but then plays the expert role, you're going to try to apply these technologies to things that don't make sense
That's
or
right.
not what it was built for, right? And I've seen this firsthand is, chasing the ability to use an LLM to create a chatbot when it's probably not the right technology, but
That's true.
all the hype and buzz was there, right? And so you get into these potential situations where an executive is making a decision to use a technology without understanding enough to know whether it's either going to solve that problem or not. And so that's what I don't want to see going forward.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
why
And I
I'm
think,
just kind of
Matt, the survey is actually saying that, which is that they are enthusiastic about it. They feel that they have the right team, which is also something that survey says, that they feel that they have a right team and a right expertise, but also they don't have this. illusion that they are an expert. So hopefully with that combination, they are bringing the right experts in the room as they are to be informed as they are making these decisions.
Let's hope so for the
Yeah.
sake of a lot of engineering teams. All right, let's get into some. Obviously, identity came up as this. Okta's an identity company. Let's talk about what about identity is so important into some of this AI discussion, right? I mean, obviously, there could be some other things here, but what is the role identity plays in AI technologies going forward?
Yeah, and if I can just jump in on that, I think there's two pieces, right? Like the two sides to the coin, right? There's the concern around AI being used as a new vector of attack, right? So certainly think about biometrics, like deepfakes, that kind of thing. That certainly comes in. But then there's also the potential for, I think, there's going to be a lot of additional requirements for access for AI models, right, to use
Mhm.
identity. And so, how do you address that problem of identity for an AI model when you go back to the first part of that problem, which is the attacker for the AI model? So, I'm really interested if you can speak to that.
Absolutely, Ben. And that's exactly, I think you covered it as to answer Matt's question as to why what role identity is playing, right? It's playing two really key and important role. One, it has the right information, a right set of information to actually help AI give you the right response or give you the right kind of help and bring the right impact. The context that you have within the identity, the personalization aspect of your identity is what will help AI bring the right outcome or the response for your questions. But then the flip side is, if it is so powerful and so core for this technology to work in the right way, it is also, needs to be protected and needs to solve for all aspects of attack protection. I think something that we look at throughout our as we solve for attack protection is that something that we call it is people are or attackers are not just hacking, they're actually logging in. And that
Hmm.
is the new trend, as you see, that they are trying to capture identity, or you can say credentials and many other things to solve for and fake identity to log in. So that's the attack or shift in the attacks right now. So the two sides again, identity playing a core role of how AI becomes a valuable asset to us and becomes a core solution or important solution for many of our areas to solve, call it productivity or innovation. But the flip side is because it's so core and important, it also is precious to protect, which means we need to make sure that our consumers are informed as to what kind of protections are there. We as an organization should have a proper identity platform that allows us to protect our consumers and customers. And we are building all of those tracking and monitoring in that platform to make sure that we understand how our identity can be exposed. So the onus is, as we are as organization leaders, we are building these capabilities or adopting this technology. The onus is also on us to make sure that we are applying the principles of protecting this identity. We are applying the principles of making sure that we understand how it's being used. So identity sits right at the core as we see this trend.
So, Bhavna, do we see? I'm curious about the innovation that has to come into the identity space to better
Mhm.
protect identity, right? Because somebody could take this video and try to use it to create a deep fake to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm Matt Alderman." But what are the other things you need to validate that video, my voice, and other things, right? That's all part of your identity, which is a little broader than the way we think about identity and access today, which is username, password. Like, how much of these other human elements come into the identity solution in the future? I'm really curious because I don't know how you can protect against this without some of these other things which we traditionally haven't captured in our identity systems.
That's a great question and a great point of view. But before I answer that question, I want to say that today we have moved out of username and password. So we have a lot more, Matt, from MFA to pass keys. And if I could say one thing and all out that, passwordless is the goal, that's where we are going. Um, but with these the number one aspect is, is the organization investing in these capabilities, or bringing in a right identity platform that allows them to have these capabilities for their customers and users. So that's the step one. If you don't even have that, the further conversation is not necessary, right? But then step two, you're right, with AI there are new kind of attacks, new kind of capabilities. I mean, very soon, as we see in the space, the clicking in the crossroads in the 9 by 9 might be obsolete very soon, right? So that's where companies like Okta and others are innovating already to look into how can we protect our customers with the new kind of attacks. Because as much as AI in good hands will bring a lot of value for humanity and tech industry, in the wrong hands it will do all the things that the bad actors could do. So that is also a responsibility on us, and as a leader in this company, I'm also looking at it. I'm also looking at the trend. My team is looking at the threat attacks as well to understand the trend and where we need to play. um, Deep fakes, voice, um, all other aspects of identity faking, I think those are all the problems that we will, I think it's still in POC, but as the technology evolve, I think attacks will also evolve. Innovation applies everywhere equally sometimes. So yes, we have to look into it. We are looking into it, and many other organizations are also looking at it. So we are trying to get ahead of the other side. Yeah.
So, Bob, do you see this as a I think there's a potentially a fundamentally different problem, right, from an identity perspective, and that's look, I'm doing my day to day job. AI comes along, and now I say, look, I want to automate or functionally replicate the activity that I'm doing with an agent that's not
Mhm.
me, right, but it's
Mhm.
acting like me, and it's acting on my behalf to create a task, right, and I can do 10 times the things that I could do, but it's authorized under my identity, but it's essentially an AI acting as me. Does that fundamentally change the identity problem? Because it's not me, right? It's going to have to interact in an identity solution in a different way, but representative of me. Like that seems to change the game a bit. And I'm just wondering how you see that potential fundamental impact of AI and automation in a changing the game for identity and access.
Yeah, but then automation was there for ages, multiple decades. So automation is not new. But yes, agent or AI focused automation, yes, that's a new thing. Now, I don't see this as a fundamentally new thing, but I do see this as a new thing. And why do I say that? Because this is a case of like me handing off my identity to another thing to play me. Now, what do I want to protect? I want to make sure that this handing off to this another agent or whatever is secure and is not getting faked. So that's how I see of this as an additional step up or additional capability or additional feature add, and not like a fundamental change in the identity practice, but more of
It's
like,
more the replication of that
yes,
digital representation of identity that is not really me, but it's a representation of that. But the instances that I multiply out could be me. So it's like it just becomes this multifaceted question of how you address that identity when you don't actually have the person whose identity is represented interacting in that chain.
and that's what identity platform solves, right? That connection of like a relationship with me as a human versus me, my AI versions. And that's why identity is at the core. And if you think about it, we already have machine to machine and many other capabilities. So
Mhm.
it's not that we don't have that, but you're right. Now agent has some aspect of brain or decision making capability as well. It's not dumb. So that does add an element of, you can say, additional protection or additional level of check and stuff. So yes, you're right. It's a step up, but again, it's again a relationship between me as a human identity versus multiple agents.
Yeah, and sorry to dig in, but one more thing on that. So when I think about how people typically interact from identity side today, it's MFA on the authentication side, right? So
Mhm.
they use MFA. But in that case, where we're talking about, I've represented myself digitally and I multiplied out. Like if you send that MFA request back to me, I'm going to say I don't know which one of those 10 identities acting on my behalf. Like I wouldn't be able to use it. Right? Is MFA now immediately outdated in that use case? Do we? Have we broken MFA in a different way?
So my view there, and it's a great example that you're bringing. And by the way, multiple bends. I mean, I would love to see that. uh, but I would say MFA is not outdated, but likely the flow of MFA needs more protection, right? That's how I see
Mm.
the solutioning here, which is now, let's say we have 10 bends sending MFA factor, it's still going to come to you and your device for you to say yes or no. So I think the flows would shift a little, or flows would evolve differently as we continue to see more application and more solutioning and more different ways of working here. And that is what I would say. I would say a feature add or a step up in the identity platform. But the fact that you're a human and you are the core identity owner who has to now still say yes or no, or give that permission, I think that doesn't go away.
Yeah, you're going to need some level of context, right? You
Yeah.
have to know which of the other 9 bends it is. Otherwise, to
Yeah, and
Ben's
wasn't
point,
it
like, I don't know
authentic?
what to do, right?
Like, right, that's the problem with people getting MFA requests now, and it, yeah, again, I think it's that model that we're going to have to continue to look at as we evolve, because this is getting to be a more complex perspective on how we address identity.
There's no doubt, is the complexity around identity, or you can say complexity around attack protection, growing? Absolutely. Innovation around attack protection growing? Absolutely. And I would say, that's the game, right? We have to stay in the game to keep winning it.
Yeah,
Bhavna, that was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
It's a pleasure, Matt, and thank you, Ben, both of you. Really great question, great insights, and thanks for talking about the survey. These were insights for us as well. So this was certainly a lot of learning opportunity and insights of, well, how is the community or the tech community leader thinking about the new trend.
To learn how identity and access management can protect your AI capabilities, please visit securityweekly.com/Okta. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Next week is Independence Day, but don't worry, we have a great Vault segment with Jeff Pollard from Forrester Research. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Business Security Weekly.